1, 2, 3, let's go.
Wednesday afternoon, hoping you will tune into our show.
View that this is Saint Valentine, but I think the original man is the one that is considered to be that. Yeah, I think, as Dan said, the actual the feast of Valentine, St. Valentine's, was started in the 8th century, but in the 14th century, so 600 years later, on the Chronicles of Narnia, I'm sure we've all heard of that, there was C.S. Lewis wrote about a parliament of owls, and I think that, the bird, the owls, I think a group of them is called a parliament. Well, a poet, Chaucer, wrote a poem at that time called Parliament of Fowls, which might resonate with, not to get political, but a Parliament of Fowls might resonate with us as what's going on in our country today. But that's another story. But this Parliament of Fowls, this brilliant poem, it actually talked about on February the 14th, in the language of Chaucer in that time, that was the date and the time that birds chose their mates. And I think he really meant birds of the feather variety rather than the human variety. But of course, it then became linked together. So on the February the 14th is the time when birds, both human and feathered, choose their mates for the future. So it's all kind of intertwined with this original, almost religious basis. And it's become a bit commercial, but in my view, it's a fairly harmless. It's a bit light-hearted and maybe a bit frivolous, but so what? Don't we need as much light-heartedness and frivolity as we can get these days? So that's some sort of basis to adding on to the things that Dan said about it as well. So. Yeah, that's St. Valentine. As to where Cupid comes into all of that, I won't really venture anything into that at this point, but I'm sure there's some relevance with that.
Yeah. Well,
just to add on to what Trevor said there, he was absolutely right. So when he was, when Valentine of Rome was arrested and held in the 3rd century, it was stated that he actually restored the sight of the daughter of his jailer. And before they sent him to his execution, he gave him, what I'm presuming would be papyri. That scribed on it said, "Your Valentine," which he handed to him before he was executed. And so Valentine of Rome was a priest, martyred in 269, and he was buried on the Via Flaminia, which is an ancient road between Rome and Apennine Mountains, to Rimini is the modern version, on the coast of the Adriatic Sea, which went through many other places: Etruria, Latrium, Campania, and Po Valley. I wanted to mention them because I think if you look at the starting points of those words, like comp, for example, as in companion, or lat as in Latin, I think. So I'm massive on English and old English texts and stuff. I think they probably helped to derive such words as in companionship. So this place, Campania, just as a curveball out there, I would look at that and think that's where the word companion came from, or somewhere around that. But anyway, back. The leader of our gang will make the show go with a bang.
And fun the aim of everything customers. And fun the aim of everything customers.
Anya, just as a curveball out there, I would look at that and think that's where the word companion came from, or somewhere around that. But anyway, back to yourself.
Yeah. I'm just curious, Danny, because I know I've had extensive chats with you, but I know I never knew that you believed in conspiracy. It's conspiracy, Dan. How come you believe in conspiracy?
Right, okay, so I'm a massive conspiracy researcher. I don't believe in everything that I read. However, I like to take things at an arm length. If it doesn't resonate with my waters, then I don't believe it. If it does, but basically, to put a very short answer to that, is not everything that we're told in the education system, in the judiciary system, in any system known to man, we are not told the entire truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We are lied to. We are falsified. It's simple. I mean, just the fact that we can read something and then get a completely different story from reading that same thing from a different source just shows how complexive our education system is.
All right. Well, what do you make of that, bro?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a whole conference. We could talk about conspiracies, couldn't we? And I think we all have a bit of an instinct to almost want to believe in at least one or two major conspiracies. That said, I would say I do believe in. I can think of one conspiracy I could think of, which I passionately believe in. So Dan is right that what we're told is what the authorities want us to know, want to tell us, and we sort of rather passively just go along with it and accept it. So yeah, I think it's good to question these things. I do.
Yeah.
One of the so just as a blatant point, so one of the things that I like to explain to people when they ask me about conspiracy, so what I do normally is I pick something out with colour. I say, what colour is this? So for example, this is my lighter, sorry, but hold it that way. So this people would look at as yellow, and throughout all the way through foundational key stage 1, 2, and 3, that is a yellow lighter. However, when you start getting to university, what they tell you is the molecular prisms that derive in every single atom that take the light and transform the light into colour, that absorbs a colour. So the colour that you see is actually the colour that's being rejected from the object, which means that when you see that coloured object, that object is every other colour in the spectrum but that one colour you can see. And the reason you can see it is because it's being rejected. And that's one of the fundamental lies that they teach people in school is apple is red. Apple is actually every other colour in the spectrum but red. You can see it as red because the photons have been rejected. But that's one of the my most favourite things to teach people because it shows the complexity between what's real and what's not real.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, but isn't it right to actually say that truth is actually what we see? I mean, I'll give you another similar example, really. I had a guy come in the other day, an engineer bloke, because I had a loss of lights in some of my rooms. It was some fault he corrected. But he actually said, because our homes are AC electricity, alternate current rather than direct, he said, if you turn a lamp on or a light on, he said, in reality, it's flashing on and off all the time because it's AC current. But we just can't see it. It's happening far too quickly. But it's on, off, obviously, and that's why, for example, if you fall on God forbid, if you fall on a railway line, which is direct current, you can't be dragged off it because the current will simply go through the person trying to get you off of it as well. So you'd have to come up with some other, get the thing turned off. But anything domestic, most domestic places is AC, and therefore the stark scientific reality is that things are flashing on and off the whole time, even your television. But would we teach that to kids in school? You may do in a science lesson, but actually the truth is, we turn a light on and what we see is what is truth. So it depends. You can actually say what is truth. And I think ultimately it's what we see before us, from our vision. The thing with colours that I've always found a little bit intriguing, how ultimately does anyone prove that my red, Dan, is your red? Your red may be my blue. And we got no way of actually disputing that at all. We may see we have different definitions for different colours, so we don't know whether what others see is the same as what we see. But otherwise, I take your point.
I think from a scientific perspective, I could probably debate that argument. To be fair, but then we could debate all day.